So Ricky Garard is coming back to live competition after a 4-year ban, and he is the first athlete to come back after a ban. And this is especially important as he podiumed at the 2017 CrossFit Games.
This year, 3rd place, Rookie of the Year, Ricky Garard.
And then subsequently tested positive. Recently he appeared on the Master Madison episode, and they replayed that interview where he tried to convince everybody that he would never take steroids.
Taken steroids before?
No. If I did or had done it without telling anyone, or I just couldn't look at my brother or my dad in the eyes.
I think that was so savage on CrossFit's behalf, but also I think it's important to be accountable for your actions and for the words that you've said. It raises into question whether he should get a second chance and how we feel about somebody coming back to the sport after openly admitting they took a performance enhancing drug. So what I found really interesting in the Master Madison episode was they showed his coach Justin and his perspective on the whole thing. And Justin's take was that he was young and he was silly, and everybody makes bad choices when they're younger.
You know, he was 22 years old when this happened, and I think about, you know, the shit that I pulled when I was 22,
and he almost made out that Ricky's story could be a redemption story, and he could even be an advocate for those people that have done something bad, taken a performance enhancing drug and regretted their actions and moved forward from that.
I think he's going to be a role model, honestly, for a lot of people who've been through shit.
So I've done a recent video on performance enhancing drugs in CrossFit, and my whole take on that. I feel like a lot of the people that end up getting caught for taking steroids are often the same ones that think that everybody is taking PEDs within the CrossFit space. And I think that is the case here with Ricky Garard. I feel like he could have almost been victim of that everybody's on them attitude. In a podcast he did with Chase Ingram, he even admitted to accusing Matt Fraser of taking performance enhancing drugs.
When I know and have seen other top athletes in the sport getting away with it, are we talking about Matt Fraser?
Yeah. Could say that, yeah.
And if you believe that everybody around you is doing it, why wouldn't you think that you could get away with it? Especially as a 22-year-old that was maybe really naive. I think he probably really regretted that later on, realising that it's not the case and that everybody isn't on them and that he actually did get caught. One thing that I have found really admirable about Ricky this year is he actually admitted to knowingly taking PEDs. And you can watch this on the podcast, I'll link it below, but it's the podcast with Chase. He says that he knowingly took them for the CrossFit Games and for regionals. But his reasoning behind it was already with a supplement company that he was working with, and they didn't tell him that it was a banned substance until around the time of regionals, and they said that it might not come up in the drugs test. I think I kind of believe him. Let me know what you think. Ricky said that he really wasn't aware that what he was taking was a performance enhancing drug until he was told via text message by the supplement company, and he basically blocked it out. He didn't want to think about it, he didn't want to admit to it, he stuck his head in the sand and didn't think twice about carrying on. He did say that he stopped taking it, he got tested at regionals and he passed the drugs test, which then led him to continue taking that drug when the CrossFit Games came around. He said that he wanted to qualify, and he wanted that more than anything. He wanted to go to the games, he wanted to compete at the games, and it sounds like he was almost blinkered by this need for success and that he would do anything to get there. He does reiterate that it wasn't hugely planned and he kind of stumbled on taking PEDs, and he also doesn't categorise it as taking steroids because it's a SARM and you take it orally as a tablet, and he assumes that like steroids are injectables. So when he was doing that documentary and he said, I would never take steroids, I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it because of what my family would think, he in his mind was framing steroids slightly different to performance enhancing drugs like the SARMs that he was taking. I'm not sure whether I believe that. It does sound like he is quite naive and maybe didn't look into the things he was taking, so I can see why he might have that mindset that steroids is like this even bigger bad thing and he was just doing something that was slightly less bad. But the ban is the same. No matter what you're taking, you're not supposed to enhance your performance with stuff like this. He talks a lot about how he shut it down and didn't want to think about it, and this is a really common way for people to deal with emotions. When you're dealing with something that's really worrying and you're not that emotionally aware or used to dealing with difficult emotions like that, often people do shut it down and they pretend that it's not happening, they pretend that everything is fine, and they just carry on as normal. So I can totally see why he would have done that after realising that he was taking something that was banned if he didn't realise that initially. He's got this end goal in mind and just continued going, because what was the other alternative? He come clean and sacrifice his entire dream. That is a really difficult decision to make, and then obviously him getting away with the drugs test at regionals just reinforced the idea that you can get away with taking it in the sport, and if he already believes that other people are taking it, he may think that they might just be getting away with it as well. I think Chase brought up a really good point in this podcast. He was saying that if all of the bad things that he did when he was Ricky's age at 22 were aired for the whole world to see, there's some pretty bad stuff in there, and I think for a lot of us, there are things that we're not proud of in our life. We all make mistakes, and I think it was really cool of Chase to publicly talk about that and give Ricky a bit of forgiveness.
I've got plenty of things that I am not proud of from the ages of whenever to even currently, that if that got displayed for the entire world and I was judged by that one moment, mistakes will happen. You're not the devil, Ricky.
It is very clear that a lot of people are testing positive at the moment, and I think Ricky is a really good sign of why you shouldn't do that and how much it's taken out of him over these last few years. For those people that have already tested positive, he is a good redemption story. He's a good sign that you can come back from doing something that bad, and that you are allowed a second chance. The bans are there for a reason, and I don't think we could go around giving lifetime bans out to people that have made one silly mistake in their early 20s. So I do think he deserves a second chance.
If a sanction is going to be worth anything, when it is up, it has to be respected that it was served.
But let me know in the comments below what you think.
If I tried to let it go and move on, I just couldn't.
Do you think 4 years is enough? Does he deserve a second chance? I am really excited to see him come back into competition, and I think it could bring some real controversy if he does well. I think he is a good example in that he admitted his faults
and still made the decision on your own to continue that. That's on you. Are you taking ownership of that?
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't do something really, really bad. He cheated in a sport. He's not a murderer. But everybody has a reason to be mad at him for what he did. If you'd like to hear more about PEDs within the sport of CrossFit, then go ahead and watch this video next. I hope you like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.